City right now because the mayor has kept the schools open through this latest storm, which has caused a lot of trouble. They don't have as many school buses as we do. There's a lot of subways and stuff like that, but it's still a big problem. You don't know where your kids are. You don't think they can get home. And de Blasio said, well, look, the meteorologists were forecasting a light dusting. And then Al Roker started tweeting, you're lying, and then they went back and they found where meteorologists had pinpointed this snowstorm accurately, almost to the second, and exactly where it was going to hit. So, that's a different thing. I think you're going to find out that this guy in New York City is horrible. It's becoming apparent quickly. And on top of that, he eats pizza with a knife and fork. Well, doesn't help you on the PR.
No, I don't think people care about the snow or his
You live in
view
New York
on
City.
Crime. It's the knife and fork.
Yeah.
It's eating pizza with a knife and fork, and it's also being a Boston Red Sox fan.
And he admits that. He says to people. I mean,
He'll wear his hat. I guarantee he's going to be wearing his hat around town.
So if the Yankees and the Red Sox are against each other, he's going to go in New York. He's going to go to Yankee Stadium wearing a Red Sox hat.
He'll do it.
That's a douchebag. That's a douchebag.
He's showing his allegiance.
He's showing
it's loyalty.
What city is the mayor of? I mean, that's idiotic. I mean, this guy, he's so, I can't wait for him to fail. He's won because he is so full of himself. I cannot wait for all of his ridiculous, socialist, leftist, idiotic ideas to all come pouring down on the good people of New York City, and then my people, the conservatives, will be waiting in the wings to come back once again and save the most important city in the world. The Republicans come in, they clean up New York. You guys don't remember what New York looked like before Giuliani. It was horrific. There was a mayor, David Dinkins. The guy it was terrible. The crime rate was through the roof. And the conservatives come in, they clean things up. Everybody gets relaxed enough in New York to, hey, let's play around again. In 4 more years, when everything's broken, they're going to have to bring the conservatives in again. Because if you want to have a liberal paradise like New York City, you need good conservative leadership to keep the crime down. That's why San Francisco stinks so much. Everybody I know goes to San Francisco on a visit. They get beat up or something. They come back and some gang members beat them up. There are no gangs in New York City, really, to speak of. I mean, that's amazing. And that's going to go away because there's a reason that there's no gangs.
In San Francisco, you don't feel a police presence. I was just there for a week.
No, the police are the bad guys from the point of view of the establishment. And so it's one of those things where the patients run the asylum.
You want to move on? Next question.
We'll move on, yeah.
Iran sending a fleet of ships to the U.S. border. A fleet.
Well, they're going to send a fleet to as close to the international, as close to our national boundaries on the sea as they can, but still stay in international waters. And the reason is because we have more, but we always have a presence, I think, in the Persian Gulf or whatever. We must have moved something somewhere closer than usual. And yeah, you read that. And
do you think this is a sign, though, that they believe the U.S. government is weak?
No, I do not. I think that question is a sign that you hate the president and you're looking for any reason to say that he's weak in the country. And I'm not saying that that's a terrible thing, but I think it's more of a sign of that. It's for their own personal domestic politics. The way that you are about your leadership, everybody is about their leadership. So if they're dealing on their home front, they're looking weak, according to their people, because the U.S. is getting closer and closer and closer. It's hilarious. Really? They're going to send they're not sending a fleet. They're sending one ship.
That was the point. Fleet, quotation marks. I know this is radio and you can't.
So they're sending a ship to be off of our international waters. So they're going to go to war with the mainland of the United States and have a chance. It's a joke, but it's a way for them to look powerful to their own people. But it was funny that a lot of rhetoric came out of it where it's like, well, if the United States is going to come close to us, we're going to put the pressure on them. Well, there's no pressure there. Believe me, the Iranian leadership knows that if there was a war between the military of the United States and the military of Iran, and Iran couldn't mobilize everybody around them, it would be over quicker than the one in Iraq was before, the insurgency. But I mean, the country, the leadership would fall quickly.
Have you seen these boats? These ships?
No, I haven't. No.
Ships?
What are they, like gunboats? What are they?
Yeah, they're probably 25-foot-long boats. Look like medium-sized fishing boats.
Yeah.
This is their northern fleet. It's 3 boats, and one is a small boat that has a mounted gun and 3 people riding in it.
So it is a fleet.
I guess.
It's a fleet of 3.
I don't know if they're sending all 3. I don't know if, I mean, the one is like a small lake fishing boat.
Right.
I don't know if that one's going to make the trip across the Atlantic.
Yeah, it's a long way to go. It's a long way to go for us. Maybe they'll have to put those smaller ships on a larger ship, and then when they want to be, they drop them off, and the big ship goes home. No, I don't think it's. I think that we're actually putting a lot of pressure on Iran. We're doing less now, and Obama's trying to hold out the olive branch a little bit, but a lot of that is public. The real story is that the Obama administration has not changed the footing of the Bush administration all that much in situations like this. And I'll tell you why. It's the one thing I got to give Obama credit for. He knows that he doesn't really know a whole hell of a lot about war and foreign policy. And when you're in that situation, when you're president, you just trust. I feel like Obama he has a couple of generals and he trusts what they say. And basically he does what they say, which is a good thing. His whole thing is social, with domestic policy. In that one, he's got his fingers in everything. But if a general comes in and says, "Sir, if you don't do this, we're going to have a big problem, and it's going to be on your watch," then he says, "Okay, well, go do what you got to do. Put a drone up there, kill that guy." Obama has killed way more people through drones than Bush did, but it's not reported on so much because, for some reason, it's not as bad when he does it. I'm in favor of it. I was in favor of it when Bush did it, and I'm actually mildly surprised and glad that for the most part, outside of rhetoric and what Obama says, but what he does behind the scenes is basically the Bush-Cheney doctrine, with some messing around on the edges. Anything else, or is that it? We had 2 questions and then...
Yeah, there's one from the original Stuart.
The original?
The original Stuart.
I call him
not
Stu.
Not
I was
that
there.
Other guy.
I was there in the beginning. I call him Stu.
Oh. Yeah, your username for him is, I call you Stu. Do you think it's acceptable for Iran to gain nuclear weapons, given their overt desire to eradicate the Jews?
You know what? My answer is no, it's not acceptable for Iran to get nukes. On one hand, there's a double standard there that in the United States we don't really think about. The fact that we've got a whole bunch of nukes and we walk around telling other people that they can't have them. It's a hard argument to make that we can have them and we need them, and it's a good thing that we have them, but you can't have them. But we are the only superpower. Iran is a bad actor in the region, and the real reason why they shouldn't be allowed to get nuclear weapons, my feeling is a lot of the reason they want nuclear weapons is almost to protect their own government from their own people. If some sort of disturbance starts up in Iran where it's the people versus the government, if that government has nuclear weapons, other governments are going to be automatically less likely to get involved with that. Because once you've got a nuclear weapon, you can, it doesn't matter, you just have so much power that you have to think way longer than you would normally about whether or not you're going to go to war with these people. It would also create an umbrella. Iran sponsors most of the terrorism in the world, and it would create an umbrella. Like the reason we're in Afghanistan, good, bad, or ugly, is because that's where Al-Qaeda met. That's where they got together. That's where they had their training camps, and that's how 9/11 happened. It was basically engineered from Afghanistan. And if you have Iran with nukes, that's going to be a big umbrella that allows them, they can invite people to come in and have training camps, because you're not just going to go in there. If we found Al-Qaeda camps in Iran that we knew were there and they don't have a nuke, then you think, okay, send the military over. Let's take care of this right now. But if you find that and they do have nukes, you have to, well, do we really want to send the military? Everything becomes, is this worth the price? Perhaps nuclear war. So they should not be allowed to have nuclear weapons. But let me be a little more, make it a little bit further. We have got to figure out how to do something about nuclear weapons. Ours and anybody else who has them legitimately or not legitimately. There is going to be a nuclear something that's going to happen in future history if we don't stop it right now. The future, by the way, is not 5 years from now. It's not 10 years from now. The future is 50 years from now. The future is 100 years from now. And if we don't Barney Fife this, nip it in the bud now, and allow this nuclear proliferation to happen all over the place, it's inevitable that eventually somebody's going to get it that we don't like, and they're going to use it. So I don't have all the answers on that. I don't know exactly what we could do. But I don't know why the United States needs as many nuclear weapons as we have now. It seems to me that if each country had 3, you really have all you need. I mean, the destruction is unbelievable. Why we need an arsenal, I don't understand. So I think that we have a lot to negotiate with, and we can get rid of a lot more and not be, how weak can you be when it comes to nukes? If you have enough to blow everybody else away, you have enough. So you're not weak. And I know that we have many less now than we did in the Cold War, but I don't even know why we have as much as we do. We need to start leading. If we want to tell other people that they shouldn't have nukes, we need to look as if we're getting down to the lowest number possible ourselves. Because, like I said, once you have 3, it seems to me that you have enough. Anybody else? I heard something about Rand Paul or something, but
Yeah. Excuse me. I have from James McGill. Did Rand Paul completely ruin any chance of getting votes by trying to sue Obama/the NSA?
You know what? I saw that. I don't know a whole lot about this story. I was watching, I had TV on in the background, it's kind of wallpaper, and I saw that Rand Paul is suing the president. And I don't think I have to know much more about this story. I think he's screwing himself completely. I mean, you can't say I want to be president of the United States and I'm going to sue the current president of the United States. That's ridiculous. One lawmaker is going to sue the president. I don't even understand how that works. Rand Paul, he's got to watch it because he's very charismatic and he has a chance, an outside chance, the same way Obama did in the Democrat primary in 2008. He's got a chance of becoming the nominee, but he needs to, get off of this Tea Party rhetoric stuff. I mean, how much more evidence do you need that it doesn't work on a national level, on a presidential level? And he's kind of screwing himself by looking radical, I think. The best thing Rand Paul can do is, from now until 2016, become more mainstream. And people could say, oh, what do you mean? Give up his values? No, I mean, if you want him in the White House, he first has to get into the White House. And I don't think he should lie to people, but I think that, if you're going to get all Tea Party and extremely libertarian on people, an election cycle isn't long enough to educate people to the fact that you're not being scary. They'll just be scared, and they won't vote for you. So, but it looks like Chris Christie is, he looked to me like he was the guy. If you asked me to put money on it, 5 weeks ago, I would have said 2016 will be Hillary Clinton versus Chris Christie. And, this whole bridge scandal thing has just really knocked that fat boy for a loop. There's a lot of time left.
Which, speaking of his weight, and it's completely superficial and it shouldn't play into whether or not
Well,
he'd be president. But he had his stomach stapled, right?
Yeah.
And he's not losing the weight.
He actually has. Now, he's not lost all of the weight, but he's a little slimmer now than he was a couple years ago. But he's probably not doing as good as he should. But he's a little slimmer now. But I think there's a real question there. Is America, the last fat president? Taft. Yeah, the guy who was stuck in the bathtub.
Special bathtub he had built,
Yeah.
I think, because of that.
You know what a crisis that was? The president, what if some war would have said the president he's stuck in the bathtub, and America knows. We can't have presidents that get stuck in the bathtub. It's not good for the country.
Who was his PR man? How'd that get out? That story should have been protected.
I know. I think it was different back then. Presidents were not as, isolated as they are now. But yeah, there's a good question as to whether Americans will actually vote for a fat man. This is a good question. We could say all we want about, not bullying and being tolerant, but you close that curtain behind you and you take your vote, you're alone. So everything matters at that point. And if being fat doesn't matter, then how come your haircut matters, right? So obviously image matters when you're a politician and how you present yourself. What I wonder is if a guy of Chris Christie's weight can actually have the stamina for, when you run for president, right? You got all the, basically so the 2014 elections will be in November, right? By January of 2015, basically the 2016 race will be on. And so you'll be running around, you'll spend most of your time in Iowa and New Hampshire and whatever, but you'll be busy starting in January of 2016. If you want to get to the White House, You have to basically run for that position from January of 2015 to November of 2016. And 3-4 appearances a day. I mean, I think a fat guy gets winded. It'll be interesting to see him. That's what one thing I always people never gave Mitt Romney credit for. You know, when John McCain ran and Obama and Hillary, you'd see them in the early morning things, always with the Starbucks coffee, because they were up at something till 2 o'clock in the morning, and now they're back up again. McCain had constant Starbucks coffee. Nobody gave Mitt Romney the credit he deserved as a Mormon. He can't drink caffeine. He did all the 2 runs for president, none of it with caffeine, which I think is laudable. Nobody brought it up.
Ginkgo biloba. Is that what it is?
What?
Ginkgo biloba.
Can he do that? Is he
Sure.
allowed? Is he allowed
Why
to have an
not?
alternate?
That's natural, right?
Hey, Joseph Smith didn't say we couldn't take speed. Red Bull. No, Red Bull's.
By the way, I looked up the stats on the nuclear weapons. In 1985, this was the high. 68,000 active nuclear warheads were in the world.
Oof.
And now, today, 4,100 active and 17,300 total in the world.
All right, so
68,000. What's the point?
well, it was just
It was a race. I get the
real
arms race.
Reagan was really smart when he came in. He did a lot of that, and he beefed up the fleet too. I think we went from like 7 ships to 14 or something under Reagan. What he recognized during the Cold War was that the Russians were almost broke. So rather than do this all through diplomacy and whatever, he said, we've got the money and they don't. And if we start spending this much money on the military, it's going to force them to spend that much money on the military. And what he did was he broke them. And that was a pretty smart move. But then we ended up with all these excess nukes and stuff that we don't need. But 68,000 down to what now? 1,700? That's not too bad.
Well, 4,100 active, 17,300 inactive.
That could easily be turned.
Yeah, they're
into-
decommissioned. They weren't destroyed. They're
So
just
basically,
dismantled.
there's about 18,000 that are potential nukes out there.
United States has 2,150 are active.
Right.
7,700 decommissioned, but
That's bull.
Yeah, it's easy
So
to
there's
put back together.
9,000 that we can put together and get on. And you have to ask yourself the question: what is the need for 9,000 nukes? Some leader has to come along in this world, put some heads together, and make this happen. Because my example for this is always when I love music, right? And I always had large music collections. And in the 70s and early 80s, that was all huge LPs, right? So my music collection in peach crates and orange crates would take up half my living room. Now technology puts my entire music collection on my phone, right? Technology doesn't move just like that in music. Technology makes everything quicker, easier, smaller. Nuclear weapons will go through the same evolution. And if you don't stop this now, at some point, I don't know if it's 50 years from now, I don't know if it's 75, at some point, there's going to be something that you put in your hand that's going to be just as powerful as something that used to be as big as a house. And, this is something that people need to talk about. When there are people running for president, something that stuck with me, when Bush was running against Kerry in one of the debates, Kerry brought up the fact that nuclear proliferation was the most important problem in the world. And Bush, who was the president at the time, said, I agree with that. So these two guys know that this is an important thing. I haven't heard it brought up again because it's slipping through borders. It's going around. Sooner or later, it's going to end up in a container on a ship in the port of Los Angeles, And so there's no way that you can police every one. You've got to come up with some kind of treaty that can be that can be first ratified and that can be verified, that we can get it down to, there should be 100 nuclear weapons in the world. Everybody should feel as if they've got their back, if there's 100.
back to the local front.
Yes.
We will go.
Oh, lost my ear.
Do you really see Georgia passing legislation for medicinal marijuana?
Oh, everybody wants me to talk about medicinal marijuana.
Well, they know that.
They know that I'm a fan
Yeah.
of medicine. Hold on, let me put my damn ear thing in. Yeah, I do. I don't know. I think that I think Georgia's ready to make that step. A lot of things are changing lately. A lot of things that when I was growing up, I never thought I'd see. I certainly never thought I'd see gay marriage. You just didn't think of it. You just think, you just thought the country didn't, and not to get to the race of the president, but I mean in its best way. I never thought in my lifetime, a lot of friends are African American, like, we'll never be president. I mean, nobody thought. I always thought it will happen, but I didn't think it would happen this soon. I hope we get some black conservatives very soon, but I mean, it's just great. I mean, I told people years ago, we'll have a female president, we'll have black president. This is America, it's going to happen. But it's all happening very quick now. So in America, the president being black is not a big deal anymore, and just go back and check it. That used to be a big deal. Gays getting married is not a big deal to most people, and it doesn't matter about the people who don't like it because they're being overruled by law and everything. On top of it, in Georgia, just last year, we were able to buy liquor on Sundays for the first time. So things are going pretty quickly, and when you put medicinal on it, it's an easy sell. You find the person who had cancer that could have had a better life but died, you promote that, and it's an easy sell for people. It's like, look, if people are hurting and they need it, most people will say you should. I mean, all medicines are drugs, so what's wrong with this particular drug? So I think that there's a good shot at medicinal marijuana. I think that Georgia will be one of the last states that has legalized marijuana in the way that Washington State or Colorado has. I think that's going to be a Western phenomenon that creeps to the Midwest. It's going to take some, except for New York and places like that. And then somewhere down the line, however fast those dominoes fall, at some point there'll be 45, 46 states who have legalized marijuana, and then Georgia will start feeling like, okay, well, we're overwhelmed at this point. This is what's going to happen with gay marriage. Is at some point more states are going to have it than not, and you're going to look like you're backward and idiotic by not having it, and boom, it'll be everywhere. So I think there's a chance. That's my way of saying I think that there's a chance.
Are you okay? Next question. Are you okay?
I'm okay. I'm fine.
With
sorry.
With domestic drones in U.S. airspace. And did you hear the 1-800-Flowers story?
No, tell me.
I think it was one of these flower companies delivered flowers with a drone. It was a publicity stunt.
Like the Amazon type drone?
Yeah, because that's what triggered it. And the guy's like, we should try to do this. And he delivered them. Got a phone call from the FAA. Apparently they were very polite to him. Said, you can't do that. We're worried about the safety of people.
I think that's right? I mean, they got the splash out of it they wanted, but the FAA does kind of keep the things in the air. Their job is to keep the things in the air from not bumping into each other. So it's kind of a good idea that you let them know that you're going up there. So domestic drones. I don't have a problem with domestic drones being used for police work that is already considered okay. There was an example that got people really upset where a guy was on the run. I think this was sometime last year, maybe the middle of last year. A guy was on the run from the cops, and he ended up on his property, I think, and he had a lot of acres, And so he's on that property somewhere. They have a warrant for his arrest. I believe there was violence involved with what he had done. I'm not sure. And they need to go in and get him. Now, in the past, they could already use a helicopter to go over his land and look and see if they could find him hiding. But a helicopter gives you away. You can hear a helicopter. I don't have a problem with if I'm a captain of a police force, and my choice is I can send 10 men in there, and I know this guy's got a gun, and I know he's violent, and I could maybe lose a couple men trying to bring him in, or I can bring in a silent drone that tells me where he is, and then I can just sort of, boom, get down there on top of him very quickly. I think it can be good. It's like anything. Anything can be abused. You can't stop technology because it can be abused. Drones in domestic airspace can be abused. I have almost no doubt that that they will be at some point. But you have to handle those situations. You have to put those people in jail. You have to take those people to court for abusing it. But everything has a good side and a bad side. When we learned how to harness fire, there was a lot of good in that, There was a lot of good in harnessing fire, but people also got burnt up. You didn't stop cooking your food because some people got third-degree burns on their face. Yes, drones are good if it can help cops catch criminals and make it safer for the cops who are going after criminals. If you ask me about bad cops, do I want drones in their hands? No, but I don't want bad cops, but I know they're out there. There's a bad apple here and there.
They already have guns.
They
Bad
have
cops.
guns. Right, exactly.
Those bad cops with the guns.
Yeah, exactly. So can it be? I think some people, because abuse is a possibility, they just don't. They don't want. But you can abuse anything. You know, you wouldn't have anything if that was your standard. People are pissed off at me because I'm a libertarian, but I don't mind all the NSA spying and all that. They don't get it. They think I've lost my mind. But I understand how algorithms work, and I understand, you know, if you're gonna cut terrorists off, you gotta. If you're looking for a needle in a haystack, you got to gather the whole haystack, or it doesn't work.
People want to know where Beardman Mike is.
Yeah.
Well, actually, these two.
Does he get worked up talking politics? And is he as grumpy as he seems?
He's not grumpy. He's wonderful, actually. He gets a little grumpier sometimes than I expect, but he's a great guy. You guys are here because we're doing this for the first time and we don't have phones. And so I need to take questions and I need you. So usually it'll just be me and one of you guys helping me a little bit. But this is not – I want the shows to look different from each other. You know, we're going to put out 5 morning shows a week. We're going to put out three of these shows a week. We have other shows coming. And I don't want it to get monotonous for people. I want each of them to have a different flavor, different feel.
Flavor. I have a Twitter question from JB.
JB, good guy.
JB to me. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Why don't we really have things to help parents? # because you asked.
Okay. I think I don't really understand the hashtag world all that much. Because you asked.
Why don't we really have things to help parents?
Well, I think we do. We have things, right? I mean, there's entire companies that
How-to books.
How-to books, how-to book parent. Now I can't speak. This guy has gotten to me.
JB to me.
You know what? I like JB. I'm glad
too.
he's part of this discussion. I have no idea what the hell he wants out of me on that one. I gotta say.
Maybe it's about
Maybe resubmit the question in English.
Yeah. All right.
Then we'll get to it. Good guy,
Why don't
JB.
you answer that question with a question? Resubmit
The question.
Yeah.
My answer to that question is the question.
Yeah.
Is this answer. Resubmit the question.
Sarah Palin, will she be running in 2016?
No.
Oh.
No. Why? You think she is?
I thought she was.
Why?
That's what is on the streets.
Well, that's on the streets because what people who aren't Republicans don't understand is that the Republican Party is not interested in Sarah Palin. You don't run for president pissing people off. I'm not talking about Sarah Palin as a person or whatever. I'm just saying her style, first of all, the one way that you can nominate a fat guy is to put a woman in there with that voice. Who in the hell wants to listen to that from the White House for 4 years? Honestly, that Alaskan accent is enough to go right down your spine. So, and again, just like the fat thing, people may not talk about that, but when you're in that electing, you're voting, you're alone, and so you don't have to be politically correct, and you don't have to whatever. Sarah Palin, biggest mistake if she ever wanted to have a future in national politics is she gave up the governorship 2 years after she was governor. And she's gone on and made reality shows and this sort of thing. I think that's not a resume to be president of the United States. Now, you could say, well, Obama didn't have a resume. Obama's got charisma coming out of that's important when you're a politician. Sarah Palin is divisive in her style. And in order to make that work, you have to be able to say, she was a 2-term governor who fixed all the problems. She did this and went there, and she did this and went there. You can't say, oh, she's just this really groovy lady that we like who quit being governor and did a bunch of reality shows. That's not going to get you to the White House. And so I say, you know what? She doesn't deserve a lot of her stereotype. But, she hasn't learned. She hasn't learned that you do have to play a game. I get so sick and tired of conservatives and the media. You know what? Ronald Reagan was beloved in this country for at least 6 of his 8 years. And the media hated him. And there were only 3 channels back then. There was no internet. There was no my favorite conservative web blog. There was none of that sort of stuff to rally people. Ronald Reagan understood. I've got to be able to speak to people through the media whether I like it or not. If you want to be president of the United States, hey, Mitt Romney, guess what? You have to go on MTV. Sorry. You can't say I'm above that. If the other guy goes on MTV, you got to go on MTV. And so it's time to get off the high horse. If you want to be president of the United States and you're a Republican, you got to figure out a way to speak to the people and inspire the people. How? Through the media, not just Fox News and your stupid Twitter feed.
Can I ask a question?
Is this from Autumn?
This is from Autumn.
Otto Pritz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So earlier on our morning show, you talked about those principals or whoever from that school who did the Ice Ice Baby parody video.
As a way of telling kids that the school was closed
Right.
that day.
So do you think that's different than Mitt Romney or whoever saying that they don't want to go
Yeah.
on MTV?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a high horse that like some school administrators need to be more professional, whereas maybe these politicians have to dumb down to like go on SNL or go on
The
MTV.
difference there is that they're looking for votes. When a politician comes out, a politician is saying, I'm asking you for your vote.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are asking for votes, then you have to go anywhere where the votes are. So the people in the school, I get your point about being mature and not mature and acting whatever, but the people in the school don't have any pressure to do an Ice Ice Baby thing. They could have just put out a thing and all the kids would have stayed at home. Everybody would have gotten it. But my opposition, as much as it bothers me, it's not a big deal,
Right.
is because we had a couple of these lately. There was one on the last storm from somewhere where they did a different video.
Yeah.
And they're rapping and
They
stuff.
did a song. They did Bohemian Rhapsody.
I just think that I think there's a general problem in this country of adults not wanting to grow up and be adults and be hip and cool just like the kids. You know what? It's not your place. I'm 50 this year. It's not my place to be hip and cool like the kids. I had my time. You know, I had my time when I was between 15 and 30 or 32 or something like that. Let other people have their time.
Way to make us feel better.
No, I mean, oh yeah, right there.
Extended
I extended it to 32.
32.
Right,
Yeah, you're like,
sorry.
how old, Greg?
But you know what I mean? I mean, it's to me, I find it unctuous when you have like a principal rapping to Ice Ice Baby that were closed. They're not supposed to be your friends. They're not supposed to be your enemies, you know? But it's important, I think, when you're 15 or 16 to see adults as something different than you. Like something that you're going to become one day, but that you're not now. And that they're more responsible than you are. And they're maybe a little more boring than you are. And you're not supposed to figure that out until you yourself become a father or a mother or have those responsibilities. And then you go, now I get it. They weren't trying to harass me. They were trying to make sure I didn't get killed. You know, they're trying to make sure I was raised properly. It's got to the point now where I'm as bad as anybody else. You know, we sit with our kids and watch The Family Guy and we're all laughing at the same things. You know, and we're all buddies, you know, and I don't really have a problem being my children's pal. I think that's a good thing. But I think administrators in schools and stuff like that, there should be some separation. We're the adults.
Yeah.
You should fear us just a little bit. We could, if we say bad things about you to your parents, you know.
That's how
it's
some of
gonna
these
get
politicians
bad.
feel, you know?
Well, I know, but the politicians, though, like I said, you're asking for votes.
Right.
So you have to go to every state fair, and that's where MTV comes in and SNL.
Mm-hmm.
It's another state fair. You're reaching more people that you're asking for their vote. And you just can't be high and mighty and say, I'm not interested in the vote of a 22-year-old MTV watcher. You know, Mitt Romney, maybe you would have turned some heads. Maybe not enough for your election, but maybe a couple people would have changed their minds, and then they become Republicans later. You got to look at it as an opportunity. If I was running for mayor of Atlanta, the very first thing that I would do as a white candidate for mayor of Atlanta is I would make only appearances for the first 3 months in black churches. You have to go where, you know what I mean? You can't just say, well, okay, well, the black politician has his people and I've got mine and I'm just going to try. That's what Mitt Romney tried to do. If I just get every conservative out, you know, then we'll win. No, you have to go a campaign. You have to change people's minds. You have to get in front of people and Ronald Reagan used to say to people, if you agree with me on 85% of what I'm saying, I deserve your vote. There's no 100% out there. So you have to go where the votes are least likely. And if you can start changing opinions there, you're on a roll. You got something going on. You can just mobilize the people who already agreed with you. You're nothing.
Big merger in the works. Comcast and Time Warner Cable. What are your thoughts on this one? And then it's somewhat relevant. You've worked in radio. You've seen the consolidation of radio over the years.
I think it's a little bit different because don't they kind of have the same programming?
Well, yes.
I mean, it's not as if, you know, Time Warner Cable and Comcast Cable I can only get HGTV on Comcast. Am I going?
But there's the crossover now. Now they're starting to get in the business of
Right.
programming. So you have Comcast that they own NBC,
Right?
And Time
Well,
Warner
that's true.
has all the channels here. The former
And
Turner
that's what
network.
it's more about. That's what it's more about. They're trying to own their own programming so that they can cut their cost, at the top, and not only cut the cost, which is probably less of it. More of it is make the money on syndication, which they don't. Like NBC can run. Back in the old days, they could run Law and Order or whatever, and then not have any part in make it a huge hit, and then make none of the money off of syndication. So if they owned the company that made Law and Order, they might take a hit at first, but if it goes on to be super popular, then down the road in syndication they'd be able to get some of that money back. These shows are really, really expensive. I think that a lot of people are saying there's going to be antitrust problems with this, and maybe there will be. But if you're in the cable, and everybody hates the cable companies, I'm sorry, everybody does. It's just maybe it's a reflection on them. Basically, my cable service has been okay. This internet, this whole operation is on cable internet.
Well, now's the time to tell you that about 5 minutes in, the stream dropped and we had to go back up.
Oh, really?
So there was like 2 minutes of missing show.
Well, okay, so fine.
So
but I
there you
mean,
go.
that happens. But that was probably not the internet company. It was probably somebody up there upstairs being stupid and hogging bandwidth from us. But, the thing with those companies now is that they have to compete with other platforms. They have to compete with the computer, and they have to compete with Netflix, and they have to compete with all this other stuff. So I'm not so sure them coming together is as much of a danger as it would have been, say, 15 years ago when there was less choice. But I'm not an expert on that. But and I'll look forward to see how it's taken care of and whether or not it's approved. Because I think you got to be careful. These companies might be saying, look, if we don't consolidate, we're both going to die in 10 years, and we're trying to head that off. So,
Did you see the Bill Nye ham debate
I did not.
a couple weeks ago?
I heard about it.
It's gone. Any thoughts on it, even though you didn't see it?
I think that Bill Nye, even though I would agree with him on his side of the debate, in case people don't know, the debate was creationism versus evolution, right? Bill Nye, being the science guy, is on the side of evolution. And I don't know who the ham guy is, but he must be famous in those circles.
He has that creationist museum, I think.
Oh, the guy from, okay,
Yeah.
all right. A museum that, by the way, if I was driving and I saw that sign and I had the time, I wouldn't miss it. But I can't even imagine what's in the creationism museum. But so I would agree with Bill Nye, obviously, even without seeing the debate. But let me tell you something about Bill Nye. That guy annoys the hell out of me.
Oh.
He annoys the hell out of me. He went from being, I'm Mr. Wizard to now I'm going to go off and tell you why global warming is.
He's very polite about it. He's not in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that are in your face, but he's not as in your face. But I don't think it's his place to tell me that I'm stupid if I don't buy all the global warming stuff. He doesn't know. This, and what I can't stand about it is I love science. If I've got no time and I'm with YouTube, you'd be surprised. I'm watching shows about physics. I'm fascinated with it. I'm not that great at it, but I'm fascinated with it. And I can't stand the idea of these guys who say, well, if you don't agree with everything on global warming, you're anti-science. You're a flat earth guy. I'm not anti-science. Matter of fact, I know enough about science to know that things are called theories means that they are not settled. Evolution is a theory that I subscribe to. It's a damn good theory, but it's a theory. It's not settled. And for these guys to come along and say the science is in, that's it. That's not science. A good scientist is looking to be proven wrong. That's the difference. A good scientist, the guy who's trying to come up with the next penicillin, is looking to be wrong so he can learn about how to be right. The global warming people don't want to hear anyone say they're wrong, and they're not looking to be wrong. And that's why I think they pervert science. Now, global warming is happening because it can be measured, but we don't know what the cause necessarily is. Now, it could be us. It could be that the sun is in some kind of, the sun has been around for 5 billion years. The planet has been around for 4.5 billion. Is the sun about halfway through, right? Sun's about 5 billion. Planet's about 4.5. I don't want to get it wrong.
It's in its 40s.
Yes. So, there's been a lot more time without us than with us, and I'm not buying the idea that in our lifetime we're gonna ruin it. In our life, it's been around 4.5 billion years. We've had civilized societies for over 10,000 years, and in the 100 or so years that my people are around, we're going to destroy the whole thing. I find that hard to believe. I think it's bigger than us. I really do.
You don't think there could be an effect, a combination of any sort?
I think there could be. What I'm saying is they're presenting something as fact that is theory. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that their theory is absolutely wrong. I'm saying it's not true science to say that the facts are all in and this is the answer. The facts are not all in on anything. I mean, if you want to get weird about it, the facts aren't in on 2 + 2 = 4. It's just getting very, very close to being right. I'm not going to go that deep. We're getting to the point where we're finding that we may be in multidimensional universes. There's all kinds of stuff going on, and most of it is theory and logic and all this sort of stuff. So, and also, what are the volcanoes? How much do I have to admit in my society to even compete with volcanoes and natural phenomenon like that belching things into the air? So I'm not an expert on it. I'm just saying global warming is a theory. It's not a fact.
Well, that's kind of the argument that we were saying earlier, was that if you are in contrast to some popular belief, then all of a sudden you are just, your argument is totally invalid.
Yeah.
Everything that you believe or think is somehow insulting.
It's not exactly the same thing, but it's in the parlance. You become a hater.
Yeah,
and it's just, and by the way, I think this is a good
can't just
opportunity.
disagree.
I just want to look into this camera because
talk about it.
There may be people here, and I want to say that if you ever find yourself on the short end of the stick and you refer to somebody else as a hater, you're not you think you're an intellectual, but you're not. Hater is never appropriate. It's never the proper thing to say to somebody who disagrees with you. Because, and it's like the global warming, it's exactly the same thing where they can go, well, he's just anti-science. So any criticism of me, if I say, well, you're a hater, that allows me to completely write off your criticism and not listen to you and not grow and maybe glean something good out of it. I just say, oh, he's a hater, and I move, and then it leads to the buildup of ignorance that surrounds us in the society. This dumbass society we live in now.
Let your haters be your motivators.
Yeah, and then there's people like that who I want to double kill.
Yeah.
I want to kill them, dig them up, and kill them again.
I do have a funny quote from Ken Ham.
We'll decide that.
The creationist guy. He says, when we hear the term light year, we need to realize it is not a measure of time, but a measure of distance, telling us how far away something is. Distant stars and galaxies might be millions of light years away, but that doesn't mean it took millions of years for the light to get here. It just means it's really far away.
Ooh. No, that's not true.
Right.
Yeah,
that was sweet. Oh, it's just not true.
I could debate a creationist and leave him as jelly on the floor with 2 minutes of prep. So.
Is he the best that side has?
Yeah,
His ham?
represent.
If that's the best, then
that's
why
the
even
best
do
you
it
got.
anymore?
Yeah, that's the best you got.
By the way, it's not global warming anymore. It's climate change.
Climate change, because things start to get. And by the way, the climate has always changed. We're living in the sweet
Earth
spot. By the way, even on this planet right now, you go up 10,000 feet, it's hard to breathe. You can't breathe in the oceans. The area of the planet where you can actually live the lives that we live is it's pretty thin, and so we're always dealing with the environment. I mean, imagine what the Earth looked like 3 billion years ago. It was just one boiling cauldron. It's a lot better now than it was then. That's what I'm saying.
Another merger going on. This one even maybe a little more dangerous than the Comcast Time Warner. Joseph A. Bank buying Eddie Bauer. Oh. You're a big Eddie Bauer fan. I think that shirt is actually Eddie Bauer.
Is this Eddie Bauer? That would make my wife a big Eddie Bauer fan because I never buy my clothes.
It looks like an Eddie Bauer shirt.
It might be. I don't know. Eddie Bauer's in everything. Like, you think they're in clothes, and then you get in somebody's car and you look at the console and it says Eddie Bauer. What the hell is this? I have no idea. But
is the future of men's fashion in danger? Too much consolidation.
As much as I will take this question seriously, I will say consolidation can be a good thing, because a lot of times you have two companies that if they keep fighting it out, they're only going to hurt each other. And then ultimately, if both companies go out of business, then the fashion world, in this case, men's fashion, would be hurt. You're sometimes better off if they go together. And that's why we have agencies to look at them and see. Don't we have plenty of other? Isn't there still like the Johnny Carson line of suits out there? Didn't they keep those going after he died? I mean, there's plenty of other places to get suits.
Kmart.
I feel Target.
Yeah, in terms of suits.
Goodwill.
No. The Johnny Carson line maybe was in Kmart at some point.
Right.
A lot of times when the celebrities' lines fall off, they make their way into Kmart or Target.
Jay Leno should have had a line, just jean pants and jean shirts.
Yep, jean vest.
There's the Leno line.
Jean glasses frames.
Jeans everything.
Jean contacts.
So no,
Denim.
I think it sounds like a good one. It was a weird thing. There's a Joseph A. Bank. There was another men's fashion. What's another outlet that's like Joseph A. Bank? Men's Warehouse.
Yes.
Is that what the one you're saying that they're?
I think they're in competition of buying each other. It's like,
well, that's the thing. It's like Men's Warehouse, or one of them tried to buy the other one, and they said no, and then the other one, then like 2 weeks later, tried to buy that one. So they've got a little spitting.
Yeah, they're going back and forth.
Yeah.
Names of your cats.
Oh, now this really belongs on the internet.
I think this is a good way to wrap up the show.
Yes.
We have a few minutes left.
Names of our cats.
Let's get to the hard-hitting topics here.
First of all, cats are cool, and I ain't trucking with anybody who is, if you like dogs, you like dogs. I've never, I don't. People think, oh, he's a cat person. It doesn't mean I wish bad things on dogs. I'm nice to dogs, but to me, for my lifestyle, I've always thought of dogs as liberal Democrats, always needy, always needing stuff, always wanting to be petted.
Hey.
Cats are more libertarian to me. They, sometimes they're nice. Sometimes they'll come over and they'll just kind of rub on your leg like, hey, I'm in the mood to, be your friend right now. But most of the time, they really don't give a damn about you. They can't feed themselves. You got to feed them. But they basically are born going in litter boxes. It's fantastic. You don't go through that 3-month period with a puppy where it's just got to put papers down everywhere. And I just like their, I don't know, I like cats. And they work for their food. Cats, if you got a mouse coming into your house or something like that, they take care of that.
The bugs, roaches,
yeah, they run around. Exactly. Cats don't seem to be good with bugs. They'll bat them about or whatever, but they're not interested in eating them.
They never do this kill stroke.
They never go right for it,
Yeah.
Even with mice, I feel like they play around
with
them
they
a
do
bit.
play around. That's kind of sad.
Or they bite their heads off.
I'll go out. Oh, God. We had a cat. My favorite cat ever.
Yeah.
Our favorite cat, Hunter. We have the ashes upstairs. We have photos.
Yeah.
Our favorite cat ever. This cat owned this
R.I.P.
neighborhood.
Hunter.
Owned this neighborhood. And it was the top cat. And he was only 4 years old, and he ate something last year, and I don't know, just poisoned or whatever. I took him to the hospital, and we lost him. But when he was around, I mean, every other time I went out the back door, there was something headless and bleeding. Because, he thought, like, hey, Eric's going to want to see this. Look what I brought you. All he would do is eat the head and leave the rest of the body for me to dispose of somewhere. So
it was a gift to you.
Yeah, it is from their point of view. If
I read
they don't understand it when you come out and go, ah, they're like,
yeah.
Whoa, hey, I'm trying to give you a gift.
I read that it's actually not a gift. That
it's
these poor humans, they don't know how to feed themselves.
Well, that's still a gift.
I guess it's a gift. Yeah, it's like
it's a pity
I'll
gift.
bring this to you
It's
so
a
you can
pity
eat. You're welcome.
You feed me, I feed you.
Right.
So the names of your two current cats.
My two current cats. Well, one cat is named Lucy, and Lucy was awesome when she was a kitten. Because I called her the Ayn Rand cat, because no matter what pen we put her in, she would just struggle for hours until she got over the thing. And she was fantastic, and I just loved her. And then something happened with the attitude. Somewhere in there, she just became a bitch.
Well, the other cat died.
The other cat died.
And she, by default, became the dominant cat.
But she became a bitch before then.
Okay.
And and it may be me, but I look at her, and she looks like Adolf Hitler to me. So I don't know what it is. I'm going to start a website, cats that look like Adolf Hitler. I said, maybe there's one out there already, because they can look a little bit like Hitler.
Which one is this? Is it the calico one or the gray one?
Yeah, that's Lucy.
Okay.
The gray one is named Gracie. It already had that name because Dallas at Kicks brought me that cat. After Hunter, she heard that Hunter died, and we were sad, and she had come across, I don't know, a stray or something, whatever. And that turned out to be Gracie. And Gracie just has a great personality. Fantastic. Stinks up the whole house when she takes a dump, but great personality.
It's pretty bad.
That's the only thing I don't like is you got to keep on cleaning up. But I'd rather do it in my own house. The idea of walking around behind a dog and picking up its poop and walking
really
around.
Warm.
Oh, disgusting. No, not for me. Not for me. All right, hit that music, because I think the first That Other Show with wEVH.
It was kind of like an Ask Eric Anything.
I know that, and we're going to try to change it because, we tried to keep it a lot in politics. We're going to try to change
Which we
that.
did.
We do want to get a phone system put in here. We've been overwhelmed. This is how I work, I say I'm going to do something, and then I figure it out. I'm going to make a movie. Do you know how to? No.
Just start making it.
Start making it until we make it. I'm going to start this whole thing, And so we're learning as we go along. We got to get a good phone system in. But That Other Show with wEVH will be on again next Wednesday at noon. So please join us.